Okay, we left off with some interesting discoveries about Granny. She has a lot of diamonds, and now, after discovering that, now Ben wants to spend more time with Granny so he can figure out what's going on. So, we're in chapter 8, A Small Wig in a Jar. Hmm. Ben hid in the bushes outside Granny's bungalow. Whilst Mom and Dad were downstairs in the living room watching Strictly Stars Dancing on the TV, Ben had scaled down the drain pipe outside his bedroom window and cycled the 5 miles to Granny's. This alone was a sign of how curious Ben had become about his granny. He didn't like cycling. His parents were always encouraging him to get more exercise. They told him that being fit was absolutely necessary if you wanted to be a professional dancer. But since it didn't make much difference when you were lying under a sink screwing in a new length of copper piping, Ben had never willingly taken any exercise. Until now. If Granny was really going out for the first time in 20 years, Ben had to know where. It might just hold the key to how she came to have a ton of diamonds in her biscuit tin. So he huffed and puffed along the canal towpath on his clunky old bike until he came to Gray Close. The only good thing was that, being November, instead of being drenched in sweat, Ben was only mildly moist. He had pedaled fast because he knew he didn't have that much time. Strictly Stars Dancing seemed to go on for hours, days even, but it had taken Ben half an hour to cycle over to Granny's, and as soon as the show was over, Mom would be calling him downstairs for his tea. Ben's parents loved all the dancing TV shows, dancing on ice skates, so you think you might be able to dance a bit, but they were completely obsessed with Strictly Stars Dancing. They had recorded every single episode and had an unrivaled collection of Strictly memorabilia in the house, including a lime green thong once worn by Flavio Favioli, framed with a photograph of him wearing it, a Strictly Stars Dancing real fake leather bookmark, some athlete's foot powder signed by Flavio's professional dance partner, the Australian beauty Eva Buns, his and hers officially Strictly Stars Dancing leg warmers, a CD of songs nearly used on the show, a small wig in a jar that had been worn by the presenter, Sir Dirk Dudley, a life-size cardboard cutout of Flavio Favioli that had some of Mom's lipstick smudged around the mouth, some earwax in a jar that belonged to a celebrity contestant, the politician Dame Rachel Prejudice MP, a pair of tan tights that smell of Eva Buns, a doodle on a napkin of a man's bottom drawn by the nasty judge, Craig Malster Woodward. And here's a picture of that wig in a jar. Why somebody would want a wig in a jar is beyond me, but a set of official Strictly Stars Dancing egg cups, a half-full tube of wax jacks used by Flavio Favioli, a Craig Malster Woodward posable action figure, a Hawaiian hot pizza crust that had been left by Flavio, complete with a signed letter of authenticity from Eva Buns. It was a Saturday, so after the show had finished, the family were going to be having cheesy beans and sausage. Neither Mom nor Dad could cook, but of all the ready-made meals Ben's mom took out of the freezer, pricked with a fork and placed in the microwave for 3 minutes, this was his favorite. Ben was hungry and didn't want to miss it, which meant he needed to get back from Granny's house quickly. If it had been a Monday night, say, and they were having chicken tiki lasagna, or a Wednesday and dinner kebab pizza, or a Sunday Yorkshire pudding chow mein was on the menu, Ben wouldn't have been so bothered. Night was falling as it was late November. It was rapidly growing colder and darker, and Ben was shivering in the bushes as he spied on his granny. Where can she be going? Thought Ben. She hardly ever goes out. He saw a shadow move in her bungalow. Then her face appeared at the window, and Ben quickly shot out of view. The bushes rustled. Shh, thought Ben. Had the old lady seen him? After a few moments, the front door opened slowly, and out stepped a figure dressed entirely in black. A black jumper, black leggings, black gloves, black socks, probably even a black bra and knickers. A black balaclava disguised the face, but from the stoop, Ben knew it was Granny. She looked like someone from one of the covers of the book she loved reading. She straddled her mobility scooter and revved the engine. Where on earth is she going? And more importantly, why was she dressed like a ninja? Ben propped his bike against the bushes and got ready to tell his own grandmother, which was one thing he had never in a million years dreamed of doing. Like a spider scuttling around a bathroom trying not to be seen, Granny steered her scooter close to the walls. Ben followed on foot as quietly as possible. It wasn't too difficult to keep up, as the top speed of her mobility scooter was 4 miles per hour. Rearing across the road, she suddenly looked back as if she had heard something, and Ben dived behind a tree. He waited, holding his breath. Nothing. After a few moments, he poked his head around the trunk and saw that Granny had reached the end of the road. He continued his chase. Soon they were near the town's high street. It was all but deserted. As it was early evening, all the shops had shut for the day, and the pubs and the restaurants had yet to open for the night. Granny stayed out of the glow of the streetlights, swerved into doorways as she neared her destination. Ben gasped when he saw where she had parked, the jeweler's shop. Necklaces and rings and watches sparkled in the window. Ben couldn't believe his eyes as Granny took out a tin of cabbage soup from the scooter's basket. She glanced around theatrically, then pulled back her arm in readiness to smash the tin through the jeweler's shop window. "No!" shouted Ben. Granny dropped the tin. It crashed to the ground and cabbage soup oozed on the pavement. "Ben?" hissed Granny. "What are you doing here?" Here's a picture of Granny in the middle of her act. Chapter 9, The Black Cat. Ben stared at his granny as she stood by the jeweler's shop, dressed in all black. "Ben," she prompted, What are you doing following me?" Ben was so shocked he couldn't form a sentence. "Well," she said, "whatever you're doing here, you'll have the cops on us in no time. We better get out of here. Quick, jump on." "But I can't, Ben. We've got about 30 seconds before that CCTV comes on." She pointed to the camera screwed to the wall of an apartment block next to the row shops. Ben jumped on the back of her mobility scooter. You know when the CCTV cameras come on?" he asked. "Oh," said Granny, "you'd be surprised by what I know." Ben looked at her back as she drove. He'd just seen her preparing to rob a jeweler's shop. How could he be more surprised? Clearly, there was a lot more to his granny that he had never, ever known. "Hold on," said Granny. "I'm going full throttle." She violently twisted the handle of the scooter to absolutely no effect that Ben could feel. They hummed off in the dark, going about 3 miles per hour with the increased weight. "The Black Cat," repeated Ben. They were finally back, sitting in Granny's living room. She had made a pot of tea and laid out some chocolate biscuits. "Yes, that's what they called me," replied Granny. "I was the most wanted jewel thief in the world." Ben's head was exploding with a million questions. Why? Where? Who? What? When? It was impossible to know what to ask first. "No one else knows except you," Ben continued Granny. "Even your granddad went to his grave not knowing. Can you keep a secret? You have to swear not to tell a soul." "But..." Granny's face looked fierce for a moment. Her eyes narrowed and darkened like a snake about to bite. "You have to swear," the old lady said with an intensity Ben had never witnessed before. "Us criminals take our oaths very seriously indeed." Ben gulped, a little scared. "I swear not to tell anyone." "Not even your mother and father?" barked Granny, nearly spitting out her false teeth in the process. I said, I swear not to tell anyone, barked back Ben. Ben had been learning about Venn diagrams in school recently. As he had sworn not to tell anyone, and let's say that anyone is set A, then Mom and Dad are obviously included in set A, and are of course a subset of it. And there was really no reason for Granny to ask Ben to swear a second time. Take a look at this handy diagram. But Ben didn't think his granny would be interested in a Venn diagram right now, since she was still staring at him with those scary eyes. He sighed and said, "All right, I swear not to tell Mom and Dad." "Good boy," said Granny, as her hearing aid began to whistle. On one condition," ventured Ben. "What's that?" said Granny, seeming a little startled by his nerve. "You have to tell me everything." And that is the end of chapter 9.